And we decided to go with what to do. Cause my, what I envisioned was like, yo, Rod, what it do?
What it
And
do,
then, you know, today we got
dude?
Johnny boy. What's up? What it do, Johnny boy? I'm leaning into my mic and talking into my mic as if it's actually recording the audio. We both
Yeah,
know it's my AirPods.
it looks good though. I mean, I love the name What It Do. Or if we wanted to like slant a little more Detroit, it could be like What Up Doe, you know? But
Okay.
see, with the
Is what up, Joe? Your thing? I mean, is that
no,
what you
that's
actually
Detroit.
say?
I do say that all the time, but that's a Detroit thing. So, like if you go to like Shaolin, you go to New York, they say, What up, God? All the 5%ers are like, What up, God? What up, God? You go to Detroit, they say, What up, Doe?
All right. What up, Joe? I'm so confused.
What it do, what it do, what it do. What it do, 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 what it do.
Today, I wanted to talk about one of the most important things to me as an entrepreneur, which is validating new ideas. Now, a lot of people get into entrepreneurship because they become obsessed with an idea and they can't let it go. And I would say most people, 90% of entrepreneurs never get started because they can't let that idea into the world and they protect it. And I think they protect it because it's a happy place for them to go in their brain. They're like, I invented this thing. And so what they tell themselves is like, I can't tell anybody because they'll steal my idea or something like that. And, doing that myself, I've learned over the years from countless unsuccessful projects and a handful of successful projects that what you got to do is you got to let it into the world before you fall in love with it. Okay. So my
Like
tips
it.
to help. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, no, I like it. And by the way, one of the things I love about podcasts is I get like, it's like the actual one place where it's like encouraged to interrupt the other person all the time.
Right.
I think it's actually good for the show,
Yeah.
right?
I totally agree.
Uh, but I love this idea. I have ideas pinging in my brain about how I would respond to this. But before I say anything, please continue.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that brief derision and caveat because I agree. This podcast is perfect for it. So the idea is to validate an idea. Now, I have some governing principles before I'll get involved with something. And if somebody falls in love with their idea, go ahead. But if you want to bring it into the world, if I want to bring it into the world, it's got to do three things. It's got to be fun because I know if this project isn't fun, I just won't want to do it. It has to be of service, because an important part of my life is to feel like I'm benefiting other people. And the other thing is it has to make money. And that's a big one because otherwise I'd end up in my closet writing love songs and ambient EDM so I could make Jason Katz top Spotify wrapped,
You'll get there.
so one day. So for me, I have these base principles. For me to get involved in a project, it has to fit those three things together. And if it passes that first validation, then I'm ready to act. Okay. And what I'll do, and I think I'm similar to most entrepreneurs, is you have 10 ideas at a time, So I have a running list and I use Trello. This is the only thing I use Trello for, but I have a Trello board with ideas and moving left to right is how I'm prioritizing those ideas. So I can encourage like random ideas. I've got an idea right now I'm really excited about. It's a pet product. You know what I mean? But this is very far to the right on the Trello board because I'm not getting involved in a pet product right now. You know what I mean? But I don't want to discourage the source of ideas by poo-pooing it unjustly. So I put it on my Trello board. I got an idea, I put it on there. But the ideas that I feel like have the best chance to succeed, that I should really spend my time and money on, I move all the way to the left so I can start validating my ideas from there. To give
You're
you a
like
visual.
Kanban. You're like Kanbaning your ideas. You're dropping them into a repository, and then you're slicing off the ones that feel the best and maybe you think are the most viable for whatever reason. And then you're coming up with a way to kind of parking lot the other ideas so they have a home, right? Like they're worth living somewhere, but you're using this as a way to sift through your ideas in your brain and ultimately land on like the shortest, most impactful things that you think you want to focus on.
100%. And as a creative person and entrepreneur, I feel like it's good to nurture even bad ideas, even when they'll never have a home, that you represent them somewhere as if it's like an altar for new ideas to come. Because that's the thing, is that like a good idea and a bad idea both come from the same place. And if you're trying to discriminate against bad ideas, then where are the good ideas going to come from? But that's just me. So I've
Yeah,
got my
interesting.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, no,
So
I'm gonna jump. Okay, finish your thought.
no, go ahead. I'm pontificating forever. So go ahead.
Yeah, no. So I have an alternative challenge. So it sounds like your challenge sometimes is, or if you're using yourself as an example, you've maybe had experiences where you've had ideas and you've felt so protective of them that they never actually made it into anything. Is that where you're coming from?
Correct. And I've spent a long time with them in a black box, wasting massive amounts of time and money, not bringing them forward. And that's what I want to avoid, is not wasting time.
And you're not bringing them forward. Help me understand, because it feels like it could be a number of things. It feels like either there's too many ideas to know which one to bring forward, number
Mhm.
one, or what you said earlier, you're so protective of the idea because you think you have something special that no one else has, that you want to be protective. Are you saying that you're kind of guilty of doing one or the other or both? Or
I think so, especially in the beginning, your beginning journey is you want to protect the idea. Now I've learned to go against that. But now I've also set up these parameters because I know I'll dive into a project and spend a year and a half wasted time working on it, if I don't create some boundaries. So first boundary is make sure you prioritize what you're working on. Cool. And it's got to be of service, fun, and it's got to make money. We got that established. And the next part of the validation is to make 100 phone calls and talk to 100 different people that could
it's a
be
good one.
potential customers, so that you get direct validation. Now, there's a great tip from Tim Ferriss that I've done a million times, which is, when I'm doing my validation calls, and I always talk to you about new ideas, you always talk to me about new ideas, and it's important to start with the people you love first, because if they hate the idea, they're just going to lie to you a little bit and be like, "Yeah, it's pretty cool, man." But they'll also give you very honest feedback if there's something shaky about it. So I'll begin my validation calls in almost like a bullseye. So the center of the bullseye are people that love me, the ring outside of that, people that like me, then people that know me, then people that don't know me. And what I'll do is
I'm literally writing this down right now because I'm literally going through this process, and I want to share my part and how I've been handling it so far. But I want you to finish because this is good stuff and a good reminder for me.
I love it. Yeah. And this has been very important for me because I need to hear it and I need to make sure that it makes money, because usually my ideas are of service. Usually they're fun, but to make money is the real ultimate validation before I commit time to it. So I'm on these validation calls. I'm explaining the idea. They say, "This is great." And then you take the Tim Ferriss method, which is you have a landing page where you can take cash, and you say, "Great. I'm doing a pre-launch right now. Go to this website and buy it." And this is where the rubber meets the road, because you'll have a lot of people that are very enthusiastic, but are they willing to commit with their cash? And when they do, you've got something, you know? So I've taken two products all the way through 100 calls and killed them because people that told me it was a great idea wouldn't commit a dollar. In some cases, it was $20. So one product was a cookie company that lived exclusively in text messaging. So you would get a text of
It's
the
like cookies that I eat,
yeah, cookies, real cookies.
like chocolate
Spent
chip and
yeah,
then peanut butter snickerdoodle.
I spent 6 months, cooking cookies, baking cookies all the time, trying to get up the right recipes. But the whole idea was it was all automated on text. So you get a text and it's like, "Here's the featured cookie." And you're like, you just reply yes. And then it will send you this thing of cookies. So I had the pricing down to basically it'd be like $20 for 6 cookies. And I had a Keystone margin, and it was like ready to go. I had all the product. I talked to 100 people. Everyone's like, "Yeah, I'd spend $20 on 6 cookies." but they wouldn't, so it died there because even these are friends and family that would be like, okay, sign up right here on this landing page. And they wouldn't do it.
Yeah. How did your landing
So
page look?
it was great. It looked awesome. You know what I was making before it was made was crumble cookies, you know? Are you familiar with crumble?
I am.
Yeah. Well, they make these big, delicious cookies that are really made for Instagram because they look better than they taste. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? So the part of the experience of having the cookie is actually taking a picture of it and sharing it.
for
So it
sure.
has built-in virality with it. So that was really the idea, is to create these audacious, unbelievable cookies, you know? But $20 for 6 cookies, I mean, Crumble's doing it, but when I was trying to do it, nobody pulled the trigger, you know? So I
And you
abandoned
had a
the idea.
good looking landing page, didn't work for you.
It was called Poppin' Cookies. Poppin' Cookies, and it was fun and fresh and it was cool, but, some of these things, man, and it's like when I saw Crumble really take off, I mean, they went from, I think, 12 franchises to, like, 250 in, like, 12 months, and I was like, "Man, dang it. I knew it,"
And
you know? And
yeah.
because flour and eggs is cheap, ultimately, which is why there's so many pizza places. So it's like, well, what else can I do with flour and egg? Well, cookies. So when they took off, it was very validating. It was like, okay, so it was just wrong place and time. Now, this is the other, I think, important differentiation for entrepreneurs and why they don't bring their ideas to bear fruit. Because what happens a lot of times is our ideas and our projects become our identity. So I'm out there making 100 cookies with people that know me, and they're like, dude, you're doing cookies, man? You're the cookie guy? And if I would have put it into my head, like, you're the cookie guy, man, you're ride or die for cookies. If It would be very hard to abandon a project that's not making any money if I'm like, oh, I'm the cookie guy, and now everyone's going to think I'm a failure, you know? So the separation, I think, from your personal identity and your project is something that I think it's only born out of, like, heartache, like, when
Yeah,
something
you
goes
you
bad.
you you definitely have to remove the emotion and
Yeah.
treat it like a scientist, right? It's all an experimentation. But it's interesting to hear your approach to starting a business. It sounds like you're passionate about coming up with ideas and interesting ideas, innovative ideas. And I definitely think that's a fun way to think about starting a business. I've been spending a lot of time thinking about how I want to start a business, and I've been ruminating on this. And I'm in the middle of starting a business right now. I've been ruminating on this and trying to figure out, like, even what my business is, right? And at the end of the day, I'd say my process was very different. I mean, you're taking these very fun and interesting, it sounds like maybe product ideas, although I know that you've looked at some service business ideas as well. What I did was I asked myself the question, and I was like, what am I great at right now? Like, what's the thing that I'm the absolute best at? And I just looked at my current world, and I have a corporate job, and I lead teams, and I work on strategic planning, and I implement strategy for the organization, and I implement operational strategy and planning for the organization. And I'm like, man, like, there's a lot of really valuable things here that I do. How do I monetize this? Right. And, the obvious answer is consulting, but consulting is the last thing you want to do is leave a job that, I'm working 50 hours a week to trade off for another job that I have to forever work 50 hours a week and hustle to make the same or more income. Right. So
Yeah.
it's like, how do I, how do I productize what I'm great at? And while I would love at some point to invest in and grow businesses like what you're talking about, like a cookie business, which I looked at, by the way, not a cookie business, but I went through a period of time where I was looking at buying small businesses, right? I joined the Cody Sanchez group, and I was looking at this other group called Small Business Deal Hunters. And, I was looking at buying service businesses, and I was looking at e-com businesses. I was on Flippa, looking at Flippa businesses. And I was kind of on that train for a little while there. Like, I was like, oh, like, shit, like, there's businesses I can buy. And, like, I'm 44 years old and I can actually afford this. Right. So, like, maybe I should just buy a business. And the idea of, buying something that's already generating income. But, pros and cons on that one. I will disclaim that anyone thinks that they're going to go buy a business and that's going to be easy is like, that's just not true. Right.
Right.
Like, if it was easy and making a lot of money, they wouldn't be selling it. Right. Or they would have already sold it. So I went down that path, and yeah, I realized like anything that I do, whether it's buy a business, start a business, like have this idea like you're talking about, and process through and find an idea that I'm passionate about, or if I'm buying something, or if I'm doing which is what I'm doing now, which I'll get to in a minute, you're going to have to really go in. Like
Yeah.
there's no easy way to do this, and it becomes easier, or I would say, easier to separate yourself and think that things are going to be easier when you are 20 years seasoned in the professional world and you have people that work for you, right? And you're used to being a little bit out of the weeds, and you're used to giving direction, right? And then it becomes easier to balance life and work a little bit more, right? But when you're going in and you're looking at buying a business and you're talking about investing a huge amount of cash or starting a business from scratch, like you got to take off that hat. It's, where you have this team to delegate to, and you got to know that, like, yes, you need to be strategic, and you have to have a roadmap and understanding and a vision of where you're trying to go. But you also need to be ready to do the work, right? Like, and it's you're back to work until 9 o'clock. I mean, I go downstairs, have dinner, 5 o'clock, rock the baby for an hour, and then ask my wife if I can excuse myself and get back on my laptop for 2 more hours, you know? And it's going to be a grind in any direction that you go in. And I think when you talk about validating ideas and picking which business you're going to go down, knowing that it's going to be a grind and that there's no easy solution, I think you have to evaluate, like, what am I actually going to feel good about dumping all this time and energy into? Right.
Totally agree. And it reminds me too of like somebody described kind of the progress of, let's call it, a capitalistic worker, So you start by working for somebody else, then you're self-employed, then you own and operate a business. And I think that's an important differentiation because some people get ownership and operating confused. And then you invest. So if you own a business, you're either an investor on the backside, you an angel or something like that, or you're an operator of that business. And there are a lot of people I've ran into that are looking to buy a business, own a business, but they don't want to be an operator, which I think is totally
Well, and the
fine.
question, and totally. Well, do they have enough money to do that? Right. Because
Yeah.
that's the line of invest in or not. And, I don't know about you, but where I'm at, like, I could buy a business. I could be I'm going to have to spend some period of time, whether I buy a business or start a business, working in the business, right? They say working in the business or working on the business. And inevitably, I'm going to have to be in the business for some period of time, right? Whether I went and bought a business for $1 million or I started my own business like I'm doing now, I'm going to have to be in the business. The thing and the reason why I landed on starting my own business is because at the end of the day, the risk reward for me, and I get it, like, startups fail more often. And, that's yes, but does that apply to every single person like the same way across every business? Like, no, right? I understand that most small businesses fail, but I believe in myself and whatever. But yeah, they're losing my train of thought a little bit here.
I can kind of riff on that. Actually, every business fails. So the fact is that you have a beginning, you have a growth stage, and then you have the finality of it. And understanding where you are in those paths is really important. And this is probably a little bit advanced, but like if we're talking to entrepreneurs that have had a little bit of success, I think that you should really have all three income streams going. You should be self-employed, which is a lot like what you're working on, which is like, this is me going professional as me because I have a breadth of experience that I can sell to other people. You should have a business that you own and operate because, when you have employees, boy, that's the fastest way to make you rich, and then you have investment opportunities where you're building upon that wealth.
I would agree with that three approach. And I'm living in a space right now where I'm trying to figure out how I land more in investment and less on working in business. But, back to the point of choosing the path and taking the idea. And, I had historically, my problem was the opposite of wanting to hoard ideas or not being able to choose one because there were too many of them. Historically, my problem has been I pick an idea and I just run with it. And I go full tilt and I just tell myself, this is what I'm going to do. Right. And I just run and run and run. And I've run down that sometimes for a decade. I mean, when I got into cannabis, this idea was like, I woke up one day, decided I was getting into cannabis, and here I am 15 years later, I'm still in cannabis. And,
Cannabis
that's
industry.
not,
The cannabis
yeah,
industry.
cannabis
Yeah.
industry. Yeah. That,
He's
and,
talking about,
and,
I ran into cannabis. So I was completely committed. You're like, dang, that's like
so
Snoop Dogg over here.
took acid one day. I'm committed to acid forever.
Yeah, there you go. Uh,
But yeah, historically, my challenge has been more that. And to the point of validating ideas, it kind of comes back to I've had to really figure out how to stress test the idea, sit with it, entertain it with other people, sit with it. And, I have my own process with that. Some of it really came from our conversation where you were like, hey, like jump on GPT and just start riffing and, telling your story. And I did do some of that, and I started to tell some of my stories. And from there, I started kind of like kicking around business ideas and just asking GPT, different thoughts about what does it take to be successful in this business? So what does it take to be successful in this business? And that took me down a bunch of different paths. But I do think that I'm landing on something that I think is good. I'm going to have to go through your all 100 people stress test, excuse me, to validate it. But, my core philosophy was, what am I great at like right now? Like that's really what it came down to for me is like, what am I great at? And do I think I'd be great at running a cookie company or a plumbing business or right, anything like that, any home services business? They're like, yeah, I do. I do think so. But for me to, I think, really maximize what I have to offer, like, I don't want to pigeonhole myself to any one industry because I think that I have a lot to offer all of them. And that's because I think my greatest strengths are, strategy, teams, people, process, technology. Like these are the things that are synonymous across industries, right? Like these are critical components to the success of any business. And I think we're at a really unique time where the strategy piece in particular is starting to become scalable. And I think a lot of that has to do with AI. And this is
yeah.
a really, I think, unique time. And this is where I think, found my sweet spot, which is I know how to be strategic. I know how to lead teams. I've done technology implementations and process automation, and I've built financial models and budgets and done all this stuff that transcends industries, right? But how do I apply this knowledge to all, across all these other industries in a way that's scaled, right? That doesn't consume 70 hours a week of my time where I'm only limited with how much of this knowledge I can offer. And AI is empowering me to do that in a very interesting way. I'm calling it the commoditization of excellence. And I'm
Mm.
like building out these concepts. And, I really think that the consulting industry is headed for a major disruption, right? Like the ability to apply complicated consulting frameworks in a scaled way and disseminate that knowledge into small businesses who traditionally don't have access to this type of knowledge because it usually meant they have to hire a C-suite executive or $1 million consultant, right? All that stuff's available now, right? They just need to know how to get it, right? I don't think the delivery systems to provide this knowledge to these people is in place yet. And that's really where I'm landing. And by the way, sorry, I'm kind of like taking you down the path of like what my business is.
Yeah.
But the reason why I'm going there is because you started this conversation off with how do you validate an idea? And I'm sharing with you how I validated this idea. And it was predicated on asking the question over and over and over and over again of what am I the best at? Right. Like, cause like 2 years ago, if you asked me what I really wanted to do, I would have told you I want to get into the music industry and I want to produce music and I want to be one of these guys on YouTube that's like, yo, like I'll teach you how to make Dead Mouse beats, like going back to Dead Mouse, and like I followed all these guys and, but I was always a little anxious, right? And I produce music; it's a hobby, and I was making tracks and trying to get better. And I spent a bunch of money on courses and gear, but I just 45 years in, you're like, look, like I could maybe recreate what it's like to like start producing music when I'm 14 years old, as a 44-year-old, and like go through a 25-year journey with like becoming a music producer, but like is that really what's going to be good for me and my family? You know, and does that have a high degree of a chance of success? And I finally woke up, and of course, my wife's been banging this over my head for the whole entire period of time, like smashing the fucking MIDI controller over my head, be like, "This is not right for you." She was right, and asking myself the question, like, "What am I actually like? What have I been spending 20 years doing? Like,
Yeah.
if what's the common thread of skills and expertise that accumulates to this moment right now, right? And if you can articulate that, then the next natural question is, how do I leverage that
What
to start a business?
I tell you what, man, let's do the next episode right and begin it right there. This is good, man. This is what it do. Is it not?
What it did?
What it do?
We're onto something, dude. I mean, we
Yeah.
knew this.
This is gonna be awesome, man.
What it do, what it do, what it do. What it do, what it do, what it do. What it do, what it do, what it do. What it do, what it do, what it do.